Hello everyone, I am Wang from National University of Defense Technology. Today my topic is Automated Patch Correctness Assessment. How far are we? This is our collaboration with researchers from Huazhong University of Science and Technology. In the basic APR pipeline, we first localize the fault, then try to generate patches using various methods, and finally validate the correctness of generated patches. Most of the APR tools leverage the developer-provided test suite as specifications to assess whether a patch is correct, and consider a patch that passes the test suite as a plausible patch. However, these tests are usually not adequate for shaping the formal specifications of the desired behavior. Thus, a patched program passing all the tests might still be faulty. This leads to a question: is the plausible patch really correct? Later on, researchers denote a plausible patch that indeed fixes the bug as correct. Otherwise, it is overfitting. As revealed by recent studies, existing APR techniques are widely suffering from the overfitting problem. That is, they generate more overfitting patches than correct ones on real bugs. Also, existing studies have shown that overfitting patches often break functionalities of original program, which is rather harmful. Thus, to help assess the correctness of generated patches, many approaches have been proposed in recent years. Anti-patterns checks if the code change in the patch violates predefined rules. Deqing generates tests that can expose syntactic differences between patch and buggy program. It then executes these tests on patch and Oracle programs to see if the outputs are different. OPAD first generates tests on buggy program and then makes judgment based on the criterion that a correct patch should not introduce any new runtime exception on test runs. Patch theme is a similarity-based approach. It first generates new tests on buggy program and automatically classifies these tests without Oracle. With the enhanced test suite, it then classifies the patches according to the idea that a correct patch may behave similarly on passing tests while differently on failing tests compared with the buggy program. Rundup and Eversuite are test generation tools. The intuition of this method is straightforward. Since most overfitting patches are generated due to the inadequacy of test suite, researchers propose to generate more tests to examine the correctness. Deqing is used to infer program invariants. In a recent study, researchers check if the inferred invariants of a patch are different from those of the Oracle program for patch correctness assessment. Although huge efforts are made, the effectiveness of existing techniques has not been systematically studied and compared, so our study aims to bridge this gap. We also note that many studies have proposed to leverage static code features to prioritize correct patches. Their intuition is that a correct patch is often syntactically and semantically proximate to the original program. In this study, we consider 8 features from 3 APR tools, which are SSFix, S3, and Capgen, respectively. Generally, they leverage token sequence, syntactic structure, and semantics of programs for calculation. These APCA techniques are selected as our study subjects. Generally, they can be classified into 2 categories: dynamic and static. based on whether they need to run test cases. Furthermore, they can also be classified based on whether they need oracle information. This corresponds to two different application scenarios. Those do not require oracles can be integrated with patch validation process and thus help to increase the precision of APR tools, while those require oracles are usually used for patch evaluation, that is to help assess the effectiveness of APR techniques. As for our patch benchmark, we select patches prepared by a recent study, plus patches generated by 5 other tools. We filter patches generated for Mockito project, since some of our study subjects cannot generate tests for them. We also filter patches that are not plausible, that is, they cannot pass all the original tests. The label information of the aforementioned collected patches is annotated by the associated researchers manually. Previous studies have pointed out that author annotation may produce wrong labels due to subjectivity. To reduce this bias, we perform a patch sanity check, that is using Eversuite and Rundup to generate extra tests and check if patches labeled as correct can pass them. Any patch that fails should be labeled as overfitting. Finally, our patch benchmark possesses 3 features, which are large scale, of high coverage with respect to APR tools, and of high coverage with respect to distinct bugs. In this paper, we focus on 3 research questions. First, how effective are existing static code features in prioritizing correct patches? Second, how effective are existing techniques in identifying overfitting patches? Note that our goal is to identify overfitting patches. Thus, we define true positive as an overfitting patch is identified as overfitting. In the end, we further seek to investigate whether combining static and dynamic techniques can achieve better performance. This is the detail of our experiment setting. Generally speaking, for dynamic techniques, most of the settings follow previous studies, while for static features, we calculated values between buggy program and the patches. This figure demonstrates distributions with respect to different projects. The green bar denotes correct patches, while the white bar denotes overfitting patches. We find for features, token structure, token concept, variable similarity, syntax similarity, and semantic similarity, the values obtained over correct patches are generally higher than those observed over overfitting ones. The results indicate that correct patches are more likely to preserve high similarities with respect to their syntax and semantics compared with the buggy program. While for features, AST distance, AST cosine distance, and variable distance, the values obtained over correct patches are generally lower than those observed over overfitting ones. Such results reveal that correct patches are more syntactically similar to buggy program. We perform the same analysis for different types of APR techniques. We can observe that the trend is similar. This table shows the results of significance test, where red ones mean the difference is insignificant. Such a result indicates that existing features are less effective to prioritize patches generated for Project Long and patches generated by constraint-based APR techniques. So what can we learn? Existing static code features are generally effective in differentiating overfitting patches over correct ones. However, these features are less effective towards Project Long and constraint-based APR techniques. Here is the overall results of different APCA techniques on our patch benchmark. Note that heuristics based on static code features are not designed as a standalone technique to identify overfitting patches directly. In this study, we calculate the values for each patch based on their static feature values and then prioritize all the patches based on the obtained values. We can observe that dynamic APCA techniques with oracles can generate a fewer number of false positives than those without oracles. OPAD can achieve 100% precision, while the recall is rather low. And heuristics based on static features can achieve higher recalls but are less precise. Here is the distribution of the overfitting patches identified by different APCA techniques. Note that we do not include Rundup-based OPAD and Eversweet-based OPAD in this comparison, since they detect the least number of overfitting patches. Actually, these two tools can only uniquely detect 9 and 0 overfitting patches, respectively. We find only 11 overfitting patches are detected by all the display techniques, while substantial overfitting patches are detected exclusively by specific techniques. For instance, 48 overfitting patches can be detected by Eversweet or Rundup. In total, 610 unique overfitting patches can be detected by at least one technique. This table shows the results of existing APCA techniques in terms of precision and recall, separated by different types of APR techniques and different projects. We find anti-patterns patch theme and Eversweet-based patch theme achieve relatively lower precision values. The recall of project closer is the lowest, and recalls achieved over the learning-based APR technique are generally lower than that over the other types of APR techniques. So what can we learn? For dynamic APCA techniques, those with the oracle information achieve higher precision. Heuristics based on static code features can achieve higher recalls but are less precise. Existing APCA techniques are highly complementary to each other, but they are less effective towards project closure and learning-based APR techniques. In RQ3, we recall that our target is to integrate static features and dynamic techniques for effectiveness enhancement. To achieve so, we first integrate the 8 static features via learning. We select 6 widely used classification models, and then randomly separate the patch benchmark into 10 folds with identical number of correct and overfitting patches in each fold. We then use 10-fold cross-validation to evaluate the performance of each model. The final performance of each model is summed up over the 10 rounds of each training and testing process. Then we combine trained model with existing techniques via majority voting. We select out 2 most effective techniques plus model with optimum performance. A patch is considered as overfitting if it has been labeled as overfitting by at least 2 out of our considered techniques. Specifically, without oracle, we select patch theme, anti-patterns, and the optimum model. This strategy can be applied to patch validation process. With oracle, we choose Eversweet, Rundup, and the optimum model. This strategy can be applied to patch evaluation process. Note, we also conduct another experiment to leverage the oracle information for calculating static features. when integrating the model with techniques require the oracle information. These pictures show the results of our model to integrate all the static features via learning. We make the following observations. First, random forest is the most effective model. Second, when comparing results from the two different experiment settings, the oracle information can boost the effectiveness of all the models. Third, random forest model achieves better performance than a single tool. This table shows the integration results. We find under both scenarios, the integration results significantly outperform existing techniques. We also compared with the results obtained by integrating the three most effective existing techniques via majority voting, which indicate that without the learning model based on static code features, the effectiveness of identifying overfitting patches is greatly compromised. We can conclude that combining static features via learning significantly outperforms existing heuristics based on static code features, and integrating static features with existing techniques can achieve a higher recall while preserving a high precision. To conclude, this paper performed a large-scale empirical study on patch correctness assessment. Our study dissects the pros and cons of existing approaches, as well as points out a potential direction by integrating static features with existing methods. Our data is publicly available on the Nodal. And that's all. Thank you.